This webinar is made possible by the Sentio Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Visit us at www.sentio.org.
So hello and welcome. I am very excited to be hosting another Sentio webinar on deliberate practice and the essentials of psychotherapy book series published by the American Psychological Association. My name is Jason Brand. I am a senior deliberate and practice instructor at Centio, and today we are back again with another one of our wonderful guest experts, and today we've got Rhonda Goldman. Welcome, Rhonda.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you for that.
So
yes, hi everybody.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Rhonda. And each webinar will be we focus on a specific therapy skill. And today we'll be focused on empathic conjectures in emotionally focused therapy. And then so we're going to do that for most of the time. And then at the end, we're going to have about 10 minutes for questions and answers. So stick around for that, please. And a little bit about Rhonda. So Rhonda is a professor at the Chicago School Rhonda Goldman is a professor at the Chicago School and president of Emotionally Focused Therapy Chicago. She also conducts trainings and workshops around the world, including Copenhagen, where she just was. She has authored or edited multiple EFT books, both for individuals and couples with the American Psychological Association, including her Sentio book that we're going to be talking about today. In addition, Dr. Goldman is a founding board member of the International Society for Emotionally Focused Therapy,
Emotion focused.
Emotion focused, thank you.
Yeah.
ISEFT.org. That's ISEFT.org. So welcome again, Rhonda. How are you doing today?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you so much.
3 of these now, is that right? This is your 3rd?
I've lost count. Yes.
Okay.
But we've done this. We've also made a video on deliberate practice, right? Doing this in a video format that's an APA video. So I'm kind of getting used to it. Yeah, I've done a lot of workshops like this.
Wonderful. Okay. So let's just say a little bit here about Centio. And so Centio, a lot going on at Centio. We're going to do this real quick. Centio is an online counseling center. So if you have referrals for adults and couples, send them on over. They also have started a marriage and family therapy program, which starts in the fall, actually. So if you know people who are interested in that, send them that way. And they have a year-long deliberate practice supervision residency program, which is a fantastic program where you can really get deep into deliberate practice if that's something you're interested in learning more about in a deep way. In addition, in October, Centio is going to be hosting a experiential conference in person in Los Angeles, October 26th and 27th. It's going to be, I think, 3 days. And it seems like a really great lineup and be exciting for us because it actually gives us all a chance to meet each other in person. So if that's something you're interested in, I'll put a link in the chat once we get going here to all of these cool things. Okay. So if you've been to one of these before, you've heard this spiel before, but we'll do it one more time. So in deliberate practice, we like to make the distinction between conceptual learning or knowledge and procedural learning or knowledge. And conceptual learning is the kind of learning that you do by reading books, by writing papers, by going to your supervision and talking about your cases, talking to your peers about your cases. However, what we find is that there is a disconnect between knowledge about psychotherapy and the ability to reliably perform psychotherapy. So psychotherapy often happens under stress, and that's where procedural knowledge or learning comes in. Basically, procedural learning or knowledge is learning by doing, and we believe that both are necessary for developing expertise. So as it says in the EFT book, the sweet spot for deliberate practice is the gap between procedural and conceptual. That place where you might be able to write a great paper, might be able to really talk about your client or your patient. And then when you get into the session, you actually kind of freeze up. And so that's where deliberate practice comes in. And that's what we're going to be working on today with empathic conjectures. But Rhonda, there's one thing that I really recognize in the book, and I've heard you talk about, is that the main idea here is that we want EFT therapists to become themselves, not robots, not be able to spit out the right thing. So can you just say, a couple sentences on that and your process in deliberate practice?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think I know what you're referring to. So I think when I initially was approached to do the book on deliberate practice in EFT, I was concerned that therapists would, treat these things as skills sort of outside the context of the person, right? And that it's important for therapists to learn how to offer these different responses, but in the context of a person, and in the context of a therapeutic relationship. So the idea is that we're sort of extracting these different skills so that we can really more intensively focus on them, but then it's up to you to put them back into the therapeutic relationship and into the dialogue between you and your client. And that this is not a prescription for when to do these responses. It's more like a practice of the responses themselves, so that when you're in a situation with the client and you're wanting to be able to offer an empathic conjecture, it's kind of ready and at your fingertips. It sort of feels very natural, right? So it's kind of a little counterintuitive sometimes, because when we talk about behavior, procedural, it sounds like a little robotic, but in fact, we're trying to encourage the opposite. And we're trying to help you make these more your own responses. And we also encourage you with deliberate practice to be very improvisational, right? So we do give you examples of, okay, this is what an empathic conjecture would sound like, but then we're asking you to kind of make it your own.
Yeah.
And
Fantastic.
to always do it in a way that's comfortable for you. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to have a real opportunity to practice that today. So
exactly. This is
well
what we're here
said.
for.
Well said, Rhonda. Thank you. So this is the American Psychological Association book series published, that Sentio has published. Tony Ruminaire and Alexander Vash, who basically run the show at Centio. They are the co-authors on these, and they get these fantastic, top level clinicians and researchers like Rhonda to write, to collaborate in these books. And I think there's 19 now. And the books are comprised of, so we're going to actually flip to what the table of contents looks like in the EFT book. So it's comprised of 12 skills. And I can only imagine, Rhonda, what it took to break down EFT into 12 skills. That must have been a task.
It was tough. It was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and there's more than 12, right? There's like, it's not to say that there are only 12 skills you need to learn to do EFT. But yeah, like we had to distill what we thought were the most important skills. So this is what we came up with.
Yeah, and it's a great book. So please, I'll put in the chat all the information on where to get the book at a 25% discount. But so you can see, Rhonda did this hard work of compressing this into 12. It's clearly not an exhaustive exploration of EFT. And today we're going to be looking at number 8, empathic conjectures. But before I ask you about that, what is a empathic conjecture and all that? What I want to ask you, Rhonda, I mean, empathy is everywhere in this. And it seems like you've spent a lot of your career sort of really explicating this idea of empathy. And why is it important for an EFT therapist to have such a rich knowledge, understanding of empathy?
So, EFT is this originally an integration. It's an integrative therapy, and it integrates person-centered, client-centered, and and so Gestalt originally, right? Gestalt therapy, it's coming out of the humanistic tradition. Of course, emotion theory got mixed into that whole, and there's lots more to it. But if we go back to the origins, right, then we have to go back to Rogers, and Rogers was the one who talked so much about the importance of empathy. It was one of the core conditions, therapist conditions, that he said were absolutely necessary and sufficient. So now then, we've developed it a lot since Rogers, and we've come to understand that empathy is this very multidimensional concept, and that there's many different ways to be empathic. So it's both a relational condition, but then we use empathic responding also to deepen experiencing, to deepen exploration. And there's a very sort of important thing that EFT brings, which is like an experiential searching and exploration of the person's experience, very much like in the session, in the process of deepening emotions, right? We really emphasize bringing emotions online. But in order to do that, people have to feel safe. So there's where empathy comes in. We help people to sort of calm down and sort of regulate affect so that they can access emotion. So there's a lot of different ways in which we're using empathy to do that, right? And it's not simply, so number 2 is empathic understanding. So that's obviously very fundamental. But then beyond that, we're also doing all these other kinds of empathic responses. And some of them are more about deepening emotion and more in service of exploration. And some of them are just really like empathic affirmation and validation. They're more about really helping the person to calm down and stay with experiencing. So you kind of see, like, it's true, there's 5 of the 12 core skills are empathy ones, right? So then you have to say, okay, that's interesting. Why? So it's a good question you ask me, but that's really the answer.
Oh, great. And let's get into empathic conjectures.
Sure.
In a nutshell, what is an empathic conjecture?
Okay, so an empathic conjecture is an empathic response that is moving in an imaginal way, right? The therapist moves into the emotional world of the client and tentatively, right? We can't emphasize that enough. Tentatively offers some kind of a conjecture about what the person may be feeling in this moment. And the conjecture is often to something that is not quite focally in the person's attention, right? So it's a little bit on the edges of their attention. And the therapist is reaching in and saying, for example, like, I hear that you're very angry with him right now, and I imagine that you're also hurt, right? So we're conjecturing tentatively into person's experiences. And we're asking them, does it fit? It's done with a lot of kind of searching, tone in the voice. And it's still a kind of discovery oriented, like, is this what it is kind of response? But it's very much conjecturing about the person's experience, not conjecturing into why they feel what they feel, but like, is this what you feel?
Okay, great. And I'm excited to get into this. So the book is designed in a way where there's 2 trainees or therapists who are practicing a skill, and then there is a consultant or a supervisor. And so it's meant as a kind of, the skills are meant to be done as a kind of where you practice. One person is the therapist, one person is the client, and the supervisor watches or the consultant watches. But for today's purposes, because we can't quite do that, but we still want to practice deliberately, what we're going to do is have people put it in the chat. So it might sound confusing, but it gets completely clear in just a second. So we're just going to run to do this great job of kind of defining what an empathic conjecture is. I'm going to run through this real quick. We're going to read you an example, and then we're going to get into the actual practice. Okay, so empathic conjecture. As Rhonda said, criteria 1. So every skill in the book is broken down into its criteria. which is very cool in terms of practicing, because then you can hit specific places. So criteria 1, the response is targeted beyond the client's meaning or experience and explores the experience that underlies what has not yet been said or that which not is previously in awareness. So a little bit beyond awareness. The response is aimed at deepening emotion or elaborating exploration. The response is not a cloaked interpretation that moves towards explanation as to why, nor does it link past to present experience, as Rhonda said. Okay, it is made clear that the response comes from the therapist's frame of reference and is a hunch, not the truth, but a hunch about what might be going on for the person, just a little bit beyond. And the response is said tentatively and is about currently held experience. Okay. So, Rhonda, I'm going to read the angry client and you are going to read the therapist. Ready?
Okay, got it.
Okay. I feel so taken advantage of her. I feel so taken advantage of by her, so used.
Wow, right. So I guess you feel so used, and I mean, even outraged, just resentful. And I imagine somehow also taken for granted, just like hurt inside.
Okay, great. All right, so you can see what the criteria are broken down by the color that they are, and you can see where it lines up there with the criteria for the skill empathic conjecture. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to move to, this is where it gets fun. This is where you guys get engaged, which is that we're going to move to a client. So the client comes in and says, I really hate it when my wife says I have a drinking problem. She's one to accuse me. She smokes a lot of dope. Okay, so now your job in the chat is to use the criteria above to give an empathic conjecture to this client.
So you're monitoring the chat, Jason, right?
I am monitoring the chat, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Okay, we got one coming in, thank you. Great, thank you all. They're starting to pour in here. Okay, before we get an avalanche here. Okay, Rhonda, you ready?
Yeah.
It's enraging when so therapist says, it's enraging when she says that you have a problem and doesn't seem to see her own problem. I imagine you feel misjudged and misunderstood.
Wait, so I'm confused.
So here's what we're doing. Here's what we're doing.
Okay.
So I'm going to read these, and then you're going to give, and how do these responses line up with the criteria?
I'm sorry.
You got me? No problem.
I was looking for it to come up on the screen. Okay, so
you want me to read it again?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, sure. It's enraging when she says that you have a problem and doesn't seem to see her own problem. I imagine you might feel misjudged and misunderstood.
Okay, so then you're asking me to sort of evaluate this.
Yeah, based on the
response, right?
criteria above.
Based on criteria above. Right. So, I mean, I think you want to stick to the person's feelings. And I think that it's good that you said what you said about can you say it again, Jason?
Sure.
Because I don't have it in front of me.
It's enraging when she says that you have a problem and doesn't seem to see her own problem. I imagine you might feel misjudged or misunderstood.
Okay, so enraging, so you pick up the enraging, and that's actually good because that's going to the client's meaning system, right?
Okay.
I think the thing about doesn't see her own problem is going a little beyond where we want to go, because that could get into the judgment thing, right? Like, I don't know whether the wife has a drinking problem or she doesn't, or she does, but I want to stay focused on the client's experience. But then there's like, also what I liked about the response is how you also go a little beyond where the person is, right? In terms of what they feel, in terms of feeling taken advantage of, right?
Feel
So
misjudged or misunderstood is just a little bit beyond.
Is a little bit beyond. Yeah. Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
Do
you want to read me some more? And
sure.
we'll kind of
Yeah,
I
let's
was
try
kind of looking, part of I started reading the I'll
okay, and if one
admit, I
pops out
started
to you,
reading
Rhonda, by all means, you can just
Yeah.
jump in. But do you
Yeah.
have one there? Or you want me to give you another one?
Yeah, I'm gonna look through. So like I see one that I imagine you might be feeling resentful, right? Like I think that that's good in the sense that sticking very much with the client's experience. It doesn't quite have the searching beyond the person's experience, right? So I like it, but it's not quite conjectural. And so it sounds like you really hate hearing this. It sounds like you may be feeling betrayed and that she's being hypocritical. Again, I think the thing of, it sounds like you hate hearing this and that you may be feeling betrayed is great, because then the betrayal is the new piece, so that's conjectural. But then I would just cut it off there and not say the thing about, and that she's being hypocritical, because then that gets into talking about the wife again and being, judging the wife. We're not into that, right? We want to stick with the client's experience.
Very nice. Yeah. Okay.
And let's see, I'm just looking through. I imagine that you're feeling judged by your partner and maybe shame. It's all moving in the right direction, in terms of going to their experiences, what they feel, but then shame is conjectural. That person hasn't quite said that. I might use a different word, because you want to try to capture the feeling that they feel. But something like, even if you say feeling ashamed, is a little bit more of a feeling of what they feel. But it's going in the right direction. I can keep going.
Can I try one on you?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
This is an interesting one. You aren't denying you have a drinking problem, but you're upset hearing it from your wife. You feel like you want to change the focus, get out of the limelight. You aren't denying you have a drinking problem,
Yeah.
but you're upset hearing it from your wife. You feel like you want to change the focus and get out of the limelight.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Like it's not probably a response I would give, but it does meet criteria for what we're talking about, right? Like this thing of that they want to get out of the limelight and not and change the focus. Like I think that's kind of interesting. It's a little bit more, it reminds me almost like of an empathic reframe. And so reframes are almost like a little bit further than conjectures, because they go to, like you want to change the focus and focus on and not feel so judged. But I mean, like the conjecture is to feeling, right? So it's always like thinking about what is the person feeling. But I think that that's an interesting one, actually.
Yeah. I found it interesting too. You want one more? You got one more on this one? Okay. I hear you. You hate it when your wife says you have a drinking problem. I imagine you feel frustrated and maybe even falsely accused by her. Does that fit for you? I hear you. I hate it when your wife's, go ahead. You got it?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a good one, except instead of saying falsely accused, I might say you feel so misunderstood, Or because otherwise you're focusing on what the wife is doing, right? Now, if I was seeing them in a couples therapy context, I might focus more on that. But I think because we're focused here on an individual context, I would stick with you feel so misunderstood, and or mistreated, but I don't know if I'd say falsely accused, but I it's not wrong, again, it's not wrong. But it's an interesting one too.
Yeah, yeah. And
But
it
I
seems
want
like,
people to really, sorry, just one more thing is I want people to really focus on, with conjectures, to really focus on like, what is this person's underlying internal experience, right? What's it like to be them in this moment? Into what they feel, like try to guide your conjectures to the underlying feelings. Maybe that's something to kind of emphasize. Sorry, go ahead, Jason. Yeah. I think I've lost sound. Can you hear me?
how about now?
Yeah, there we go.
Okay, so you read the therapist. So I'll read the therapist response. So you get so
Okay.
angry when she accuses you because it feels so unfair. But I guess you feel criticized and unfairly treated.
Right. Exactly. It's kind of along the lines of what I said, right?
Yeah,
It's good to see
great.
me being consistent with myself.
That's right. Your research checks out here. Okay, let's keep it moving.
So just like maybe we should just say, can we just say one thing here about this
Yeah,
response?
please go for it.
Go back again.
Okay.
Oh, no, sorry. There you go. Yeah. So just like I really just like the way Jason broke this down, right? So you can really see the green is criterion 1, the red is criterion 2, but I guess, right? Like how I guess picks up the kind of tentativeness of this, that it's coming from therapists, but it's about client's experience. And then the kind of going to the client's actual experiencing right now. I just think it's good the way you broke this down to the basic criteria. So I wanted to emphasize that.
Great. And obviously we can't get the tentative tone through chat, but I mean, we can really kind of, you can hear it in some of the words that people are using.
Yeah.
And but also, it's just that throughout this whole thing, throughout all the entire response, there is a tentative tone about the client's currently held experience. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Great. Let's move along. Let's see. Number 2, client says, sadly, I'm an Alcoholics Anonymous, and I'm on the step where we say sorry to people. I've been making a list of all the people I've disappointed and hurt over the decades due to my drinking. There are so many. I don't know if I can handle it. Okay, and you can put your responses in the chat, please. Let's start with Brianne.
Brianne Faulkner. I'm just looking at them myself.
Yeah.
Um,
So you want me to read it or you got it?
No, I got it. So I'll read it,
Okay.
hey? Because it's funny because I picked this one out too and I really like it. So
Great.
it's really so painful to look back at the people you've hurt. It's almost unbearable. It's like, how could I have done that? I'm so ashamed of who I was. I like it. It's because it's so focused on the pain and the unbearable. It's you might have to be a little careful to not go too far beyond the client. Like, how could I have done that? Maybe that's a little too far, because then that could, evoke, assuming this person is a kind of shame, they're in a shame sort of space right now. So you want to just like not too much push into that, but then, like you say, like, so, and I saw some other people, like, I feel so ashamed, or feels like, like, that's okay, but just how could I have done that? Maybe that's not quite what they're saying. So you have to stick very close to them in that way. But I really like the pain and the unbearable. So yeah.
Can I read you one here?
Sure.
It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by the memories and emotions this process is bringing up. I wonder if you might be feeling some remorse or shame about the ways that you have impacted others in the past.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. Wait, can you read it again, Jason?
Sure. It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed by the memories and emotions this process is bringing up.
Yeah.
I wonder if you might be feeling some remorse or shame about the ways that you have impacted others in the past.
Right, right. So it's nice. Again, it's similar to the other one in the sense that it's great that you're picking up all the feeling and the experience and the vulnerability, and just got to be a little bit careful not to be too interpretive, right? Like, this is why you're feeling what you're feeling, is so what we're trying to sort of get away from. But like, so you don't want to infuse any meaning, right? You let the meaning come from the client. But but yeah, I mean, like, it's picking up, it's going in the right direction for sure.
Yeah. It's so cool the way it's so finely tuned. I mean, it's
I
really getting in there. Here's one from Oliver who says, it's pretty overwhelming to have disappointed so many people. And I don't know, it's almost like I feel ashamed about what I've done. So I think he's using,
That's nice.
that is nice, isn't it? Tell me why you see that as nice. It's pretty overwhelming to have disappointed so many people. And I don't know, it's almost like I feel ashamed about what I've done.
Exactly. Well, also, you read it well, Jason, I think. So
Thank you.
hopefully Olivia feels like this is capturing me. It's yeah, it's good because it's, sorry, my screen jumped. It's going right to, it's pretty overwhelming to, like, that's right where the person is and really capturing where they are at this moment. And then he brings in some tentativeness there. And then he says, almost feeling ashamed in a tentative way, I'm assuming, right? And like, can we kind of look at this? Like, it's a little bit of an invitation to look. And I like that. So I think it's a nice response.
Yeah, I also like the use of the client's voice, the therapist putting on the client's voice. Is it almost like, I don't know, like I feel ashamed about what I've done? It's a nice way of kind of just giving the leading edge of kind of a thought so that might be there, might not.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's move
Yeah,
next.
you want to keep going? Sure.
Yeah, let's keep going. So here's what's in the book. Something about having to apologize, I imagine, leaves you feeling so vulnerable, almost unprotected. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And so again, like, sticking with the client's meaning system, right? About having to apologize, right? But then going a little further, digging in a little further. I imagine this leaves you feeling so vulnerable, almost unprotected. So now we're pouring into the person's vulnerabilities, their underlying feelings, things they're not saying, but we're kind of guessing. So, I noticed myself saying things like guess and invitation. And I think that those things are true of empathic conjectures as well. There, you can sometimes think of them as empathic invitations, like, can we look here? Can we go in? Can we explore? And you can sometimes think of them also as guesses, because they're about the person's experience, but you're only guessing because you don't know for sure. It's not what they're quite saying in this moment.
Great. So the sweet spot of conjecture. Let's go on to the next one and see what we got here. I love this one. Okay. I love him so much that it's hard to think of anything else.
Yeah. Okay. We need more context. I'm just looking at some of the.
Yeah, well, think of somebody who's obsessed, and how are you going to put this in here?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it is hard because you need a little bit more context. So, but you can kind of, well, you did give some, like, somebody who's really in love and obsessed, and like, I do like this one because it's a person who's really in the positive emotions, maybe.
Yeah, good point.
And then you're trying to figure out, well, how am I going to conjecture into this experience the person may be feeling?
Yeah. Let's start out with Julia's.
Julia MacArthur.
Yes,
This one?
indeed. Yep.
Okay, right. It's like the feelings are so big, they take over everything inside. That's nice. I like it. I like it. Yeah, yeah. It's not too conjectural, but a little bit conjectural. So I like it. I like it.
I got an interesting one for you here. Let me
Mhm.
ask you about
Yeah.
this. It sounds like it takes up all of your thoughts. I guess that leaves little room for you.
Yeah. So I guess it's the thing of it takes up all your thoughts. I like the, and I understand why the person responded that way. But you can't, it's always that fine line, as you said, between conjecturing and interpretation. And I don't, it sounds a little interpretive when you say that leaves no room for you. Because also you don't want to go too far beyond where the person's at in a conjecture anyway. I mean, if you're giving an empathic interpretation, you're giving an empathic interpretation. I think that might fit a little bit more into that category.
Right.
And I'm not saying I never do empathic interpretations, by the way. But the thing about interpretation is that they really move a little bit more beyond the kind of current context, and they dig into like sort of the why of it a little bit more, and they dig a little bit more into explanation. Now, I'm not saying there's no place for that in therapy, but I guess like if you're just trying to stick with the person's feelings, then you want to stay there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go one more. A lot of people going with take away your focus on anything else. And I'm wondering, and so we're sort of saying, and I'm wondering, do you think that's a step too far? I mean, I guess with obsessed, we're thinking if they're obsessed with it, then it's gone a little bit too far.
Yeah, and I guess like you have to be careful because you don't want them to feel like, you don't want the client to feel judged, right? Like that it's taken up. So the thing that Julia said, right? It's like these feelings are so big, they take over. That's like a little said in a more sort of, maybe to my ears anyway, a more non-judgmental kind of framing. So you have to be careful, because we really try to stay away from the client feeling at all judged by the way we're saying it. So yeah, I think you just have to be careful. I mean, like the thing is interesting is that the obsession word, right? Like, because obsession can even sound a little bit judgy, right? Like it's bad to be obsessed, right? And so sometimes when clients use judgment words that sound judgmental, like obsessed or whatever, I don't necessarily repeat them, right? Because I see it as my job to kind of reframe that feeling and in a more kind of a kinder way, so they can be kinder to themselves. And so yeah, I guess like I'm careful with my words in that sense.
Here's a nice, I think that Maria dialed this in nicely. I mean, the beginning, let's not get lost in the beginning of it, which is you know, that, so she says, oh, I know that feeling. It's so difficult to think clear and do the normal things. So let's leave out does the therapist disclose or not in that one, and just focus on the end. I guess you have problems with focusing. Is that right?
So if you leave it, well, you see, that's interesting. You're saying leave out the self-disclosure.
Well, I don't know if we, because just in terms of time, I don't know if we have time to
Yeah.
get to like, what, you know, do you
Right.
put yourself in there or not? But in terms of
Right.
this idea that the conjecture about using the word focusing here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that one in front of me. So can you read the last part
Here,
of what they said?
Put it back in the chat
I
for
know
you.
that feeling,
It's now the last one in the. I know that feeling. It's so difficult to think clear and do the normal things. I guess you have a problem with focusing. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's a little focused on the problem. See, I was going to say, because the self-disclosure actually softens it a little bit. So in a way that's good.
Okay.
But it's not, it's self-disclosure, it's not conjecture. But so just to say though, if I'm going to say something like that, like sometimes self-disclosure does soften. But I guess like it's probably a little difficult to like the person, again, I guess you may have problems with focusing. Like that sounds like could sound a little bit like judgmental. So I think I might not use that word. Like you have a problem. You're having a problem with focusing. I don't think I'd say that.
Well, and Julia, I think we'll start rolling into questions here. And because I want to be cognizant of everybody's time. And Julia says here, just to keep this conversation going for one more second, she says, focusing on what is in the client's mind, love for other, feels more empathic than providing the context of what is missing from the client's mind, everything else. So
Okay,
focusing
if I understand
on
Julia's point here.
So I think her, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. What do you think her point is?
I think her point is, so what's in the client's mind is her love for the other, right? I love him so much. That's in mind. And she's saying that feels more empathic than providing the context of what's missing outside, like obsession, or, you know, you're not defining what's outside of the mind. You're kind of just landing on what is inside the mind at this point.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe this goes to the question of, is this the right moment to give a conjecture? Right?
Okay.
So, you know, we're saying if you were to give a conjecture, here's what it would look like. But I guess, you know, this might not always be the right time for a conjecture, right? And then maybe that's partially what she's saying. Like maybe I want to just stick with it, with what, you know, they're feeling in this moment and really try to kind of validate and bathe them in this like feeling. But if I was to try to push the explanation a little bit further, here's what it would look like. So yeah, I don't think I want to do it so abrupt, like this is what's missing, or this is, you know, this is not about you, right? It's very this tender kind of thing of, wanting to validate the person, but then wanting to push it beyond a little bit. But so I like people saying things like, it somehow feels like there's just no room for anything else, right? Like, so it's going a little beyond, but not too far.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Great. And so just so we all have it, I mean, when is the right time for an empathic conjecture?
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting. So generally what we say is, so we have a distinction in emotion focused therapy between secondary feelings and primary, right? So secondary are there, you can think of them like covers, you can think of them like defenses, you can think of them, they cover primary emotions. So primary emotions are our first feelings, but then we quickly may go to covering them, not showing them, right? And these are sort of protections. So secondary emotions are like protections. Secondary emotions and feelings and behaviors are protections from primary emotions. And sometimes in therapy, we're going to want to really get to the primary emotions, to really focus on them and deepen them, because our idea is that those primary emotions are the ones that that's where people live. And like they're also the source of a lot of difficulties people get into, what we think of as primary maladaptive emotions, which are emotions that were once adaptive but then got associated with negative learning contexts, and so they've become maladaptive. So those are the ones that people often bring to therapy, and they're the ones that we often want to focus on. And yet people will present secondary emotions oftentimes because they have these protective layers that they've developed. And so we want to conjecture beyond, from secondary to primary, right?
I see.
Often when we use conjectures, it's from secondary to primary because we're going underneath. We're acknowledging what we often say about secondary emotions is validate and bypass, right? So we acknowledge them, we see them. We don't want to invalidate the person in this moment because generally we don't want to, but we do want to help them get underneath. And so we acknowledge the secondary, but we conjecture into the primary.
Got it. Okay. And I hope people got a chance to practice kind of this getting underneath today in the examples. Now I'd like to open it up. Anybody have questions? You can put them in the chat if you want to raise your hand. I can unmute you and you can ask your question directly or just put it in the chat, either one. We have questions today for Rhonda about the exercise, about just EFT in general, anything that's percolating for people. Give it a minute. Okay, well, if questions aren't coming up, we can, oh, we got one person. Alexandra.
Unmute. Okay, there we go. Hi, thank you very
Hi,
much.
Alexandra.
I guess my question is, and I'll just kind of form it as I'm asking it, but it's something like, sometimes even though you are trying to stay just at the edge of what's emerging and go just a little bit beyond, sometimes you might kind of make a mistake and go too far. And this will happen, even though we're like trying to stay close. It's like gauging, maybe we don't realize where it's like, what's the some feedback or direction on how to notice that, and then also how to kind of like scale back. It's like, I guess just that purpose of if I have gone a bit far to a kind of helpful way.
That's a really good question, right? So and I think, I see some of my people I know here, people I've supervised and such, and like I think a lot of people have these kinds of questions, right? Like, so I think like honestly, why people don't often give conjectures is because they're afraid of what you just said, like that they're going to go too far, and so I think it's just like you have to expect that that's going to happen sometimes, right? Because we're just not perfect and we don't perfectly understand other people and our clients, even our clients. And our intention is to understand. And yet it doesn't always quite land the way we might have hoped. So I think you have to be able to recognize it. Now, I'm very attuned, right? So I give a conjecture. I kind of know it's a conjecture. And then I'm immediately looking to see how it's landing. You know, are they taking it? And the question is like, it's a subtle thing, right? But generally it's like, does it deepen experience? Or does the person sort of like stop in their tracks or push back in some way? And as long as it's continuing to deepen, then I'm like, okay, we keep going.
Great.
But
That's
if they
great.
say, okay, no, not quite right, then I just take it back, right? Like I just say, yeah, thank you. And in my mind, honestly, I'm thinking not like, oh my God, I made such a bad response. I can't believe I said that. I'm thinking, oh, isn't it great that they're now correcting me?
That's cool.
Right? Like
That's very cool.
I'm really thinking like, because that means they're trying to help me understand them. So I
Yeah.
look at it as this is the gift that they're giving me, and let's just keep going. Thank you for correcting me. Kind of
Yeah.
thing.
And David has this nice
Yeah.
comment, getting, quote unquote, getting it wrong, but being willing to tentatively suggest it teaches an openness to exploring too. So that's
Yeah,
very
completely.
nice.
You're modeling that as well. That,
Yeah.
you know, you don't know everything about them.
And if it goes way
yeah.
too far, we have a whole webinar and there's a whole section in the book. One
Oh,
of the
yeah.
skills is ruptures and repairs. So
Yes.
there's that as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's get
Yeah.
Emmett in here.
Sure.
Emmett, I'm going to ask you to unmute. What's your question today, Emmett?
Thanks so much for this. This was really, really a wonderful thing to be a part of. I think my question, one is one really small question and one small question. So the really small one is, what's the deal with emotionally focused versus emotion focused?
That's a big question. Yes.
I haven't had a lot of exposure to EFT generally, but I'm really interested in getting more.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So is that the small and the big together? So in a nutshell, it's just impossible to do this in a nutshell, but I'll just say this. They both come from the same place. So emotionally focused therapy was created for couples initially, and was created by Leslie Greenberg and Susan Johnson when Susan Johnson was his graduate student. And then Susan Johnson went on to develop it and to emphasize certain aspects of it. And then Les went on to develop it in a different direction, but it's the same, like it's the same, but there's different emphases. And then when I started working with Les, we also developed it more and more for couples, and we've written a book on emotion focused therapy for couples. It's published in 2008, and I'm working on very, very slowly working on an update to that. But basically, they come from a similar place, but they kind of have different emphases. And we, for example, like just the stuff we're doing today, we really emphasize a lot these empathic, this moment by moment empathic exploration. And as we develop the individual model, right, then we really brought in this focus on empathic exploration and emotional deepening. So there's a lot more differences. It's just I can't in this time frame go into all of them, but they basically do actually come from the same place, and they both started with Les Greenberg.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And I want to get to this last question. I think this is all we're
Yeah.
going to have time for today. I
Yeah.
apologize to those who are left with questions. So Nathan asks, pertaining to the final example, if they are obsessed, feeling so if obsessed is the secondary emotion, what would you consider as the primary emotion? Just guessing. I mean, ballparking here.
Oh, if they're obsessed is this, I don't know if obsessed is an emotion though. I mean, so a primary emotion might be fear, right?
Okay.
but it's like a little bit beyond their frame of reference. Yeah.
Okay.
There was one question. I keep seeing this raised hand from Shimmy Gettleman.
Yeah,
Do we
you
have
want to,
time?
okay, we'll take one extra minute here. Shimmy, can you make it kind of quick?
Yeah. Yeah. First of all, thank you for this.
You're
This is
welcome.
welcome.
awesome. Yeah. So basically, like empathic conjectures, you're kind of you're mirroring some of the current emotions present, and
Yeah.
then you're also trying to expand
Right.
and seeing how it lands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great
Is
way
that
to
your
say it. Is there a
question?
question, or is that just, you just want to
Yeah,
clarify that, Shimmy?
right. I just want to clarify that, and then yeah, and
Yeah.
then also go.
Well, just all
I,
everything you said, and it's like slightly shifting their focus of attention. They may be a little focused over here, and you're kind of going a little over here.
so
Right.
we're gonna recenter them. We want to recenter them, so this way we could
Yeah.
continue to work on that
Yeah.
experience.
That underlying stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and then this is great. It's maybe a weekly thing on EFT tools.
I know, we should do that,
Rhonda, can we
right?
sign you up now
Yeah.
for a weekly?
Weekly, yeah, a
I'm seeing
weekly.
thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
let's do it.
we're gonna
Okay,
have to
we'll
wrap up for
focus on
today,
that.
Rhonda. I just love, you are just able to flow with it. I mean, and I can see
Thank you.
how finely tuned a therapist you are in terms of just being able to go where the action is. And so thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
today. It's just wonderful to learn from you.
It's so great to thank you for inviting me to do this. This is really great. And I love people's participation. I always have that feeling of I want to see you, right? Like I want to
know.
see them. But I love hearing your voices, and I can actually get a lot of a sense of people from their voices. It's kind of really interesting. And I do see a number of people here, some people who I haven't seen in a while, so it's great to see your names anyway. So thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And any places people can go for more info about you and about EFT in general that you
Yes,
recommend?
definitely. So first of all, like ISEP, International Society for EFT, should I write in the chat? Will that work?
Yeah, sure.
if
You
I
can
do?
put that in there.
Okay.
And I put the book and Sentio links in there too.
Oh,
for
you
people.
did there. Okay.
Yeah, so just
ISEP
all you have to
is-
do is I put in the deliberate practice book, ISEF.
Mhm.
Why don't you put in that
Oh, you
one?
did it. You did it already. Okay. So
Okay.
isef.org, iseft.org. We also have Emotion Focused Therapy Institute.com, which is my local institute. So it's Emotion Focused Therapy Institute, all one word.com, right? And that's all for now.
Okay. Well, thank you all so much for being here. And we'll see you next time. We're doing another one of these on the 27th with schema therapy. So come on by. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.
This webinar is made possible by the Sentio Marriage and Family Therapy Program. Visit us at www.sentio.org.